Good morning, welcome, and thank you for attending CVRP's dealership webinar, EV Sales Tool with CVRP. We will highlight know your product trends, know your customer demographics, know your EV incentives and resources. We have a short hour to provide you all with useful information that will help your dealerships sell more EVs. For a more interactive webinar, we have polling questions throughout the presentation and will need your participation. Additionally, we have set aside 10 minutes for Q&A. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the question box and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. Before we begin, since this webinar is live and we are working from home, at times we experience technical difficulties, mostly audio, the occasional frozen screen, and delay in slide transition. Thank you for your patience, and let's get started. I'm Matthew Henderson, Senior Outreach Coordinator for Center for Sustainable Energy, and the territories I cover for CVRP dealership outreach are West LA, Central Coast, and Central Valley. I want to inform you all about the Center for Sustainable Energy. CSE is a nonprofit energy program administration and advisory service organization. Our vision is a future with sustainable, equitable, and resilient transportation, buildings, and communities. Our single mission is to decarbonize. If you would like to learn more about CSE and CVRP after this webinar, please reach out to us. Our agenda is packed with a lot of great information. We will cover adapting EV market trends, understanding CVRP, EV policies and customer demographics, lead generation with CVRP, and steps to an EV sale. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please write them in the question box and we will answer them at the end. So let's take a poll to see where everyone is coming from. What region in California is your dealership located? LA, Inland Empire, Sacramento, Central Valley, San Diego, Orange County, Bay Area, or Northern California? Just give one more second for the poll to pop up. Great, looks like we have a good mix of locations. LA, Inland Empire, 33, Sacramento, 15, San Diego, 21, and Bay Area, 30%. Thank you all very much for attending this webinar. And from there, I'm going to pass it on to Bridget T, who will talk about in details customer and dealerships adapting to EV markets and a quick overview of CVRP.
Good morning. Thank you, Mateo. As Mateo said, my name is Bridget Ty. I am a dealership outreach coordinator located in Los Angeles, and I will be discussing the importance of adapting to EV market trends as well as providing a CVRP overview. First, let's talk EV trends. EV technology is changing so fast, and this doesn't seem like a big deal, but prior to these past 6 or 7 years, the newest technology in the auto industry for about 20 years had been power windows, power doors, and maybe a backup camera. Now, for example, we have seen driver assist, adaptive cruise control, lane assist, and semi-autonomous driving. And so now more than ever, with the speed of technological advancements, EVs are proving to be more than a brief fad and are truly here to stay. With charging infrastructure continuing to expand to be more and more prevalent, this continues to make it easier for customers and helps relieve some of the fears pertaining to range anxiety. We have new EV OEMs coming to market, such as the Rivian, Karma, Fisker, Lucid, Faraday. And now we know that some of these will never make it to market. As technology continues to improve and demand for electric vehicles increases, it's likely that we will continue to see an uptick of new OEMs coming into this market. Now that we've briefly covered the importance of trends as it relates to EV incentives and customer behavior, we can now paint a clear picture of the way CVRP is valuable to dealerships and how dealerships can benefit from the statewide financial incentive. First, I'll provide you with this overview. CVRP offers up to $7,000 in rebates for customers who newly purchase or lease a qualifying electric vehicle. The standard rebates amounts for qualified EVs include $4,500 for fuel cell electric vehicles, $2,000 for battery electric, $1,000 for plug-in hybrid, and $750 for zero emission motorcycles. And it's important rebates are not funded by taxpayer dollars. This funding comes through cap and trade. And with that, there are 3 areas of eligibility for CVRP, including income, program, and vehicle. Beginning with income, income eligibility includes an income cap of $150,000 for single filers and $300,000 for joint filers. As for program eligibility, CVRP requires that the customer be a California resident. The vehicle must be new at the time of lease or purchase. Each customer is only eligible for 1 rebate in a lifetime. And very important to emphasize, customers must apply for CVRP within 3 months of the date of purchase. Getting into vehicle eligibility, this includes a base MSRP cap of $60,000 with the exception of fuel cell vehicles. Plug-in hybrids must have a minimum all-electric range of 35 miles. The vehicle must be owned and operated in California for a minimum of 30 months. And finally, and very important, vehicles are only eligible to receive a CVRP rebate if they have never previously been registered. In addition to the standard rebate, applicants are eligible to receive an increased rebate of $2,500 if their household income falls within the 300% of the federal poverty level. Lastly, I would like to discuss a few resources we have created to make it easier for you and your staff to learn about CVRP and to share this information with your customers. You can download resources such as the dealership poster and customer brochure on our website at cleanvehiclerebate.org. These provide a very clear overview of CVRP eligibility guidelines and the application process. As we know, the more money customers can save, the more they want to purchase EVs, which ultimately means your dealership can close more deals. The savings calculator, as you see a photo of here, is located on our website and is a tool that allows your customer to punch in the required information such as zip code, household income, vehicle purchase type, and it will be presented with the total amount of their potential additional savings. This is really a great tool to utilize when you're speaking with a customer about purchasing an EV, because as they see all the additional savings their investment will bring to them, it's a really great way to close the deal. All right, time for another brief poll. Please answer this. How often do you mention CVRP to your customers during an EV sale? Always? Sometimes? Never? Waiting for these results to come in here. All right, great. Well, it looks like 42% of the attendees always mention CVRP during a sale, which is fantastic. If you are looking for resources, like I mentioned before, on the Dealer Hub, we have downloadable resources that you can utilize and you can share with your customers if you would like to get additional talking points for how to bring it up in the sale. With that, I will pass it to my colleague, Brad. Brad, you can take the virtual floor. It's all yours. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thanks, Bridget. My name is Brad Farr. I'm one of the OEM specialists here at CSC. Relatively new here, but I've been around automotive kind of my whole career, grew up around dealerships, spent time with manufacturers, suppliers, most recently spent several years at Nissan, specifically on their EV team. I called on around 250 dealerships in the southwest central part of the country on all things EV. So retail, wholesale, trainings, tech issues, auto shows, you name it. So today I just want to spend a few minutes on EV policy updates, kind of direction things are headed with that, and also what I like to call the 3 types of EV customers, and hopefully help you sell more EVs. So what's new with EV policy? California may be the starting place for many electric vehicle policies here in the U.S., but it's going on globally, signaling these aren't just trends or fads, and EVs are here to stay. Policy is one thing that's really kind of driving it. So you may have heard the executive order N7920. That was back in September. Governor Newsom announced that all new passenger vehicle sales in California have to be 100% zero emission vehicles by 2035. At this point, that's just a statement, more or less a goal. There's no added policies around that yet, but that could change in order to meet the goal. And as I mentioned, similar policies and announcements are happening all over. Just look at China, a very similar mandate to our executive order here. And then the UK, they actually moved up their time frame to ban all internal combustion engines or ICE vehicle sales, originally scheduled for 2040. and they moved it up to ban them by 2030. So they're even getting more aggressive with it. And since auto manufacturer competition is global, OEMs are paying attention to these various announcements and market mandates, and they're adapting because they want to compete globally, not just nationally. A few examples you may have seen, some news clips out there, just to kind of give you a taste of what they're all doing. Rivian got a several $100 million investment from Amazon and even Ford. And Ford actually announced that they're going to be carbon neutral, I believe it's by 2040. And that's not just the vehicles they're putting out on the markets being zero emissions. It's actually their entire supply chain, their factories, everything. Volkswagen, with their new ID platform and kind of phasing out their old stuff. And then just this week, Hyundai said 10 EV models by the end of 2022. And that in itself is nothing groundbreaking, especially considering they already have several, and that includes hybrids and plug-ins. But they're announcing it, and they're all moving in that direction. They're all following suit. So just a quick temperature check, kind of where everyone stands. Thoughts on the executive order here in California. Do you think, A, that it's beneficial to EV sales, B, hindrance to EV sales, C, do you outright oppose the executive order, or do you just kind of want to wait and see how it plays out? If you could take a minute, just fill that out. All right, so most of you do think that it is beneficial to EV sales. Great to get everyone's opinion. As a reminder, there's no new policies around that yet. It really is just a stated goal. Kind of switching gears here a little bit. Since there's really an inevitable shift to electric, you benefit the most by being ahead of the curve and recognizing the opportunities to be known as an EV dealer now. Knowledge is power. You know the product, and I'm not here to train you on your own product or even sales. We know you know the incentives, at least the factory incentives. You should also know the extra EV incentives like the federal tax credit, utility rebates, and of course the CVRP. But what I want to spend a few minutes talking about is knowing the EV customer. We're going to lump them into three types just to give you some ideas, what these conversations tend to be like, and hopefully help you ID these customers and sell even more EVs. So first, the repeat customer. By repeat, I mean repeat EV buyer, not a first-time EV buyer. They may be new to your store, new to the brand. They may have no brand loyalty. Essentially, they're loyal to EVs, and they're really only there to buy an EV. It's important to know your competition, as they like to cross-shop, unless they're just moving into a newer model year. But they may test your EV knowledge, and they're looking for trust. They may actually know more than you. This is where I like to stroke their ego a little bit. You can acknowledge that and say, hey, Mr. Customer, you may know more than me. You've been driving this vehicle for a few years now. Whatever works. But of course, you want to be able to answer their questions and concerns, but no need to sell them on the idea of an EV. So don't oversell it and talk about unnecessary details like charging and incentives and things that they probably already know about. I've seen that firsthand, and I've seen kind of lose the customer a little bit. So these conversations tend to be a little bit shorter, more similar to what you experience with traditional ICE model vehicle customers. So a new customer, as in a first-time new EV buyer. This customer kind of has a bad reputation just because they tend to be skeptical that an EV will really work for them. They definitely ask a lot of questions, and they can take a long time to close. But it's a customer that wants to buy an EV for the first time, and they're not considering a different ICE vehicle model. But just like the repeat EV customer, you can actually offend these people by trying to flip them into an internal combustion engine when they have no interest in that. I've also seen that firsthand, and that's usually just bad reviews, and then they're never back at your store. Now, they tend to cross-shop, they research, they ask a lot of questions, and they test salespeople out in their EV knowledge. And more or less what they're looking for, what they want is reassurance to back up their knowledge and their online research and what they may have heard from their friends and family. It kind of goes without saying, but it's very important to be able to speak intelligently on the specific EV-related subjects, especially what I like to call the fundamentals. So things like the charging levels 1, 2, and 3, or quick charging, technologies such as regenerative braking, or getting into, or at least being able to answer some of the questions related to the financials like EV incentives and fuel savings and total cost of ownership and stuff like that. And lastly, we have an undecided or a flipped customer. And this shopper's unsure about a purchase of an EV. They're not there to necessarily buy an EV specifically. Now, it may sound like a unicorn, but it really only happens if you plant the seed and you're having these conversations. Now, it's possible that they're shopping an EV and an internal combustion vehicle head-to-head, comparing powertrains. For instance, the Kona has both gas and electric models, and it's a good apples-to-apples comparison. But in my experience, this doesn't happen often. Usually, the customer has their mind made up on whether or not they're there for an EV. So some other scenarios, maybe they're just there for an oil change and they're curious and they casually ask about an EV. Maybe they seriously looked at one in the past and it didn't fit their needs at that time. For example, if the range was only 70 miles 5 years ago or so, and now you offer one that goes 250 miles, and they're unaware of that and that it may now work for their needs. So they can be introduced or flipped into an EV from a ICE vehicle, especially if you identify the hot button mentions like fuel efficiency on their long commute, or bringing up these deeper questions may reveal that an EV would actually be a good fit for them. Other hot button items that could flip them into an EV, my favorite is actually the HOV lane sticker. How much is their time worth? So if you're having that conversation about somebody with a long commute, I mean, if it saves them 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, whatever that is, if it's an hour a week, how much is that time worth for you to be able to go in the HOV lane with an EV that you don't get now? Some other things, just talking about some of the incentives that got brought up or the total cost of ownership or whatever they may have as hot button items brought up when shopping an internal combustion engine, could be mentioned when you're talking about an EV, and you may find that it actually works for them. So to kind of recap, since policy is one factor that will eventually be driving more EVs to your lots, there will also be more information, more awareness, more demand out there, and adapting early will only help you solidify your dealership, maybe even you as a salesperson, to be a reputable EV dealer. And better knowledge of your EV customer, who that is, identifying those people will only help you there. So in summary, know your product, know your incentive, and definitely get to know your EV customer. Thanks, and I'm going to turn it over to Jack Minnick, the CVR coordinator.
Thank you. As Brad said, my name is Jack Minnick. I'm an outreach coordinator on the CVR team. So what is a CVR team? CVR stands for Clean Vehicle Ready. I know it sounds so close to CVRP. A Clean Vehicle Ready customer is someone who has fewer obstacles towards EV adoption, meaning they have had an EV in the past, they have access to at-home charging, they have more than one vehicle. It's kind of like that first customer that Brad was talking about. And our goals as a team are connecting potential EV customers to dealerships and informing potential EV customers about options available for them and other EV-related information. Ultimately, we're the ones trying to drive the customers into your lot. We generate EV customer leads and work to inform these leads on how an EV will work for them and what the next steps towards adoption are. As a team, we prioritize getting out in front of general audiences to present or facilitate conversations with potential EV customers. So, okay, you're thinking, I kind of get what you're doing, but how are you actually doing this? How are you actually getting the customers here? And I wanted to talk about 4 programs we're working on to try to get the customers to you all and try to strengthen that connection. So the first is a dealership meet and greet. It is a webinar format similar to what we are doing here right now, where we connect dealerships and potential EV customers. It is a way for you to show off your EV models in your lot, answer any customer questions, and ease any EV nervousness, range anxiety, whatever it is. We can help facilitate this process and provide an EV expert to also help field questions. Ultimately, just a chance for you all to show off your EVs and your sales abilities. The virtual road trip series is one where we use video content with our coordinators showing off different road trip opportunities throughout the state obviously, in an EV. We show off the range of the vehicle and the charging options along the way. And for you all, it's an easy way to show customers the infinite possibilities of EVs and resolving the myth that EVs cannot go for long distances. Also, it brings life to how EVs fit into the lives of customers in a more direct way. The third is an EV collaborative project connecting you with community-based organizations to discuss EV trends. We can have you position your dealership as a resource for EVs within your local community. And then the final one I wanted to touch on is kind of what you're all seeing there. It's the car wrap campaign. We have consumers driving wrap cars across the street in crazy designs. This campaign helps start the discussion about EVs and creates curiosity for car shoppers. You may encounter customers who have seen the car and are curious about what an EV can do for them. This is good to keep in mind, or potentially ask a customer about if they come in wanting to know more. All right, we're going to actually do another poll next. If you could pick one format below that best supports your promotion of CVRP to EV customers. We've kind of talked about a lot. Is that the Auto Dealer's Guide to EVs, CVRP collateral, social media content, or is it that CVR lead generation that I kind of just referenced? I'll give you guys a minute to kind of think about that and answer it. Just let a last couple answers come in, and we'll see what you all are feeling. So it looks like it's pretty split, although the bottom two options seem to be the most popular, but all four are really excellent options for you all. So next I'm going to turn it to Joe Ficalora, and he's a EV dealership specialist, and he'll be up next. Joe, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Ficalora, EV specialist here at CSC. Just to give you a little background about myself, I've worked in the auto industry for just about 10 years, selling for Ford, Nissan, Hyundai, and Mazda, or as a third-party vendor within the auto industry. I've had just about every position inside the dealership and was working for Nissan when they first brought the Leaf to market. I think that was back in 2011, 2012, around that time. Selling EVs back then was a lot different than it is now. Now there's a lot more information out there. Back then, the dealership was the main source of information, and customers really didn't know much about EVs. So that landscape's kind of changed a lot. Today, I want to focus on the steps to the sale and just give you guys some tips on how to work the unique talking points and word tracks about EVs. Again, we're not here to teach you how to sell cars. We know you know how to do that. We just kind of want to help make that process a little bit easier for you, and show you how to use the CVRP collateral to help educate customers. So we'll jump in with the first step is the meet and greet. When you're greeting a customer, you may have the opportunity to get them into an EV. When you ask the customer what kind of car they're looking for, they may say something like they're looking for a commuter car. This could be an undecided or flip customer that Brad was talking about earlier, or possibly a new EV customer. If that's the case, tell them an EV might be a good choice because of the savings of charging over filling an internal combustion engine vehicle with gas. Also ask them how many miles their commute is. If it sounds feasible to talk more about EVs and they're interested, then absolutely, start, showing them some EV vehicles. Obviously, if someone pulls in, into the dealership lot, driving a diesel pickup truck, lifted 10 inches, chances are, even if they're looking for a commuter vehicle, an EV might not be their first choice, but you never know, take a swing. With all of these new EV trucks that are going to be released soon, it might be an option for them. You don't know if you don't ask. The next step, the discovery. Here you want to focus on identifying which of the 3 EV buyers they are, like what Brad spoke about earlier in the webinar. It could be a new EV customer, a repeat customer, or an undecided or flip customer. You also want to identify if they're an EV lead, like Jack pointed out earlier. Keep in mind their knowledge may be varied, and here is where you really want to kind of find out what their knowledge is, so you can focus on the right information and figure out, what the customer's hot buttons are during the walk around and the test drive. The next step would be the walk around. During the walk around, you want to butterfly the vehicle like you normally would and go through the features and the benefits and get your yeses like you would normally do through the sales process. Also, here's where you want to kind of talk about charging the vehicle. We recommend opening the charge port door like you would the passenger door and all the passenger doors on the vehicles. Let the customer know what type of charging plug the vehicle has, if it's level 1, 2, 3 compatible, the different charge times of those 3 different levels. Here's a time where you want to keep maybe a charging flyer. You can see on this slide, Charging 101. Keep one of those inside the glove box. Also keep the Electric Vehicle 101 inside the glove box or the center console. As you're talking about charging, you can open up the glove box, hand that flyer to the customer. Also with the EV 101 flyer, you can hand that to the customer as well. This way they have that information on hand and, it's actually in front of them. When the hood is open, you want to go through all the safety features that you normally would under the hood, crumple zones, ABS, brakes, all that good stuff. But don't forget to tell the customer about the savings that they'll have. EV vehicles require less maintenance than ICE vehicles, so make sure you point that out. Next step, test drive. Test drive. You want to go through your normal progression of talking points during the test drive, but make sure the customer is aware of how quiet the vehicle is. You can ask questions like, do you hear the engine? No, of course not. EVs are silent. And then point out, having a quieter commute while you're stuck in traffic would be great. Wouldn't it, Mr. Customer? They're going to say yes. You'll get another yes there. Encourage them to step on the gas pedal so they can feel the instant acceleration. EVs are direct drive, so the acceleration is almost instantaneous. So you can tell them when they're trying to get home and, away from work as quick as possible, there's no other car that's going to, do that any faster. This is also where you want to have possibly the consumer flyer in the glove box. You can pass that along to the customer after the test drive so they have the CVRP eligibility guidelines, and they can look through that. Next step, negotiation. Once you get the customer in for the write-up, if the customer is grinding you on the monthly payment, you can always use the CVRP as a closing tool. If the customer is eligible for a $2,000 rebate over the course of a 36-month lease, that will offset their payment $55 every payment. So you can tell them once they get the rebate, they can put that money in the bank and take $55 out of that $2,000 over the course of the lease, and use that towards the lease payment. Don't forget to let them know about the savings that they'll have on gas. On average, to charge an EV, it's about 50% cheaper than running a car on gas. So when you're out on the lot, make sure you take a look at the Monroney sticker. They always have how much fuel is going to cost to operate that vehicle per year. Take note of that number, and if it's $2,000 a year on gas to operate that vehicle, that customer is going to be saving, roughly $1,000 in gas for an EV over an ICE vehicle. You can also direct your customer to the fuel savings calculator. If you take a look at the slide, it's at fueleconomy.gov. That's always saving money on gas. That's always a big selling point for EVs. The final step is the service walk. After you close the deal and the customer is waiting to go into finance, you're in the final stretch, you're going to sell a car, take the usual service walk with the customer. Introduce them to the service advisors and reassure the customer that they probably won't get to know the service advisors very well because EVs are virtually maintenance free. But make sure they're aware that the service department is there for them when they need some light service, replacement parts like windshield wipers, tire rotations, maybe tires. Here's also a very important step. Walk them to the parts department. Let the customer know that they can order a charging station through the parts department. So even though EVs, they require less maintenance, so service revenue is less on an EV. There's other ways to make up the revenue coming into the dealership through the service department or through the parts department with charging stations. All right. Now that we integrate, can we go back? All right. So now that we integrated some of the EV selling points into the steps of the sale, let me ask, we'll take a quick customer poll. Does anyone out there hand out the CVRP collateral during an EV sale? Yes, sometimes, not at all. We'll give you a minute just to fill that out. All right. That's awesome. Looks yes, and sometimes. That's great to see that everyone's using the collateral to help educate the customers and kind of help that EV sales process. The 29% that are not doing that, I hope you took some points away from my speaking part here. Keep some of that collateral in the glove box or in the center console of the vehicle. Giving a customer, information on hand, it's there in their hand. It's always, it's in the front of their mind. Sometimes, certain people, when you're just telling them, especially in the process of buying a vehicle, you say a lot of things, but people don't remember everything. Buying a car is a big deal. Giving that customer information in hand that they can reference later on, anywhere, anytime during that process is always a good thing. So great job there. I'm going to kick it back to Mateo. Take it away, buddy.
Great. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, everyone, for participating in the polls. It does add value to the work that we do and provides us with some great feedback on how to improve our outreach efforts of CVRP to you. I just wanted to follow up with some highlights here. Quickly going to go over them. So we did talk about CVRP, how it helps sell more EVs. We highlighted the auto industry will continue to see new EVs. EVs are here to stay. We discussed that with trends as well as policy. Clean Vehicle Ready definitely helps dealerships generate EV customers through leads. The key to the sale, we now are able to identify further the EV customer, the repeat customer, the new customer, and the undecided and flipped. Very valuable to understand how to engage conversation when selling an electric vehicle. Also, we integrate CVRP collateral, the savings calculator, and other EV resources into the sale. The walk around, utilizing the EV and Charge 101 flyers during the test drive, CVRP consumer brochure, and dealer poster. So hopefully everyone took away some really great information about their EV consumer, about the trends, about the policy, and how to utilize CVRP collateral and CVR lead generation to your benefit. We do have 2 more upcoming webinars, one on February 10th, Charge Up, knowing more about EV infrastructure, and May 12th, selling EVs then and now. So please look forward to receiving additional information about these webinars. And just to let you know, all dealerships have the opportunity for a free virtual information session from your regional coordinator. We do highlight dealership rebate statistics. We review current EV trends and also mention utilizing CVRP online resources with your customer. So pretty much what we went over today, but a little bit more in-depth and specific to your dealership. And with that, I want to thank you all for attending. And now we have about 5-10 minutes for any questions. And it looks like we have a question from Ryan Legaspi. What is CVRP collateral? That is a really great question. For those who aren't familiar with CVRP collateral, we did offer some images of it. One would be the consumer brochure that highlights all of the EV rebate amounts, the type of vehicle that receives those amounts. It also goes through the eligibility requirements for rebates of your customer. And then it also highlights additional incentives such as federal tax credit and the carpool lane. One great resource that will help guide you to our collateral is the Dealer Hub. The Dealer Hub is on the CVRP website, and under one section it says Dealer Hub. You click that and all of our collateral is available. We also have the Dealer's Guide to EV, which was in collaboration with the CNCDA, that offers insight into electric vehicles. So again, really great useful information on the Dealer Hub. I have a question from Bill Fogg. So the max MSRP cap is $60,000. If over, does not qualify for anything? Yes, back last year around this time, we did have some program updates, one of them being that the MSRP cap, base MSRP cap of $60,000. So any information, so for any vehicles that go beyond the base of $60,000, they are ineligible. One great thing is that if you go to the cleanvehiclerebate.org website, if you just scroll down on the front page, you will have the eligibility vehicle list available for your use for research as well. So definitely use the website as your go-to resource. And yes, the $60,000 is a cold cut cost. So anything above that, no. Anything at that, at 60,000 or less, is eligible. We will also be sending out this presentation to all of the attendees with this information. So definitely look forward to an email coming from us quickly after this presentation. And with that, I'm going to leave a little bit additional questions. Oh, and we also have the video too for you all. So just remind you of that. I know sometimes questions take a little longer to be asked, so I'm going to give another couple minutes to allow you ask any questions. Phil Fogg, I see that you have a question as the website has 7 Series and Audi A8 as cars that qualify. I'm unaware of any Audi A8 that are qualified for the CVRP rebate. That is something that Audis were in the past eligible, but because of the 60,000 MSRP cap, you know, that those were not eligible. Those vehicles were not eligible. I do want to say that the eligibility does change, as everyone knows, year over year. So upcoming, there might be some new changes, and with those changes, if they do occur, we will always inform all dealerships about that. So stay tuned. If there are any program updates, we will let you know. Sean Connor, we have a question from you. Will we receive a copy of this presentation? Yes, absolutely. We'll be sending it actually in the video in a couple weeks. We have to do a little bit of editing, but no doubt you will have a video presentation as well as the PDF of the presentation. So it is for your resources. Definitely use this presentation when you receive it to educate and train your staff of these points that we mentioned and highlighted throughout the presentation. So thank you very much. And with that, we have no more questions and wanted to thank you on behalf of CVRP, Dealership Outreach Team, CVR team. We appreciate your efforts in selling electric vehicles, and we are always here as a resource for you at CVRP. Thank you very much, and everyone have a great day.